Uh, I mean, obviously, I could tell she was black.
I was just more well versed, I think, in just talking to people outside of my race, not only romantically, but
Oh, geez. Hey, everybody. It's Ransom and Michaela here. We want to wish everyone a happy holidays. We hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and hopefully you're looking forward to a wonderful Christmas season. As you can see, we started to bring some festive charm, and when I say we, I mean Michaela. She's brought some festive charm
our very small
to
tree.
our house. But yes, we're very excited about the holiday season upcoming. It's time spent with family. But we're coming to you today with an exciting topic. We could have talked about this topic at some point. We haven't yet. Honestly, the reason being is we don't really focus on it too much. We don't think about it in our day-to-day life, but it is something obviously that is a part of our world. The topic that we're talking about is race, or dating outside your race, marrying someone outside of your race, and just speaking to our experience.
Yes, Merry Christmas, and excuse our small Christmas tree. We are spending Christmas in Minnesota. We're going out of town for the holidays, so we didn't go all out for our Christmas tree. But yes, race in an interracial marriage. I mean, like Ransom said, we don't focus on it, and I don't think most people do in this day and age. It's not something that a lot of people talk about or focus on, but it is something within a marriage that you start to just realize, there's some cultural differences, there's some things in our background that are just different, frankly, and you learn about those things once you start your life together, especially now that we're expecting our first child. We really start to think about, and we've talked about, what are some of the things that we want to do? How do we want to raise our children? What are some things culturally that we want them to know, learn about, experience? Some of them are really fun, and then some of them are more serious.
There was just certain things where we had to talk about, things probably mostly pertaining to our children, which I think maybe we'll talk about that more towards the end, because I think what might be, interesting for people is what was it like at the onset of our relationship when we actually came together. What did we think through or think about when we met each other, when we met each other's families? What were some things that we maybe noticed or stood out to us? And I know for me, I mean, obviously I could tell she was black. Michaela's wondered if I had hesitancy right away when we met, because of that. And I honestly don't think that I did, but
Maybe not.
Maybe to
subconsciously though.
Maybe subconsciously or to certain degrees. Maybe
because
I did.
You have to know this. Ransom and I are not only different as far as our race goes, but we're from completely different worlds. Ransom grew up on a farm in Minnesota where there wasn't much diversity at all. And I grew up in Los Angeles where there was plenty of diversity. So I grew up being exposed to so many different cultures and races. And so talking to him wasn't too out of the ordinary for me, especially because I went to school in Seattle, which was a predominantly white city. Then I also went to a predominantly white high school. I was just more well-versed, I think, in just talking to people outside of my race, not only romantically, but
oh geez,
but platonically. I had a lot of
friends.
I had a lot of friends that were outside of my race.
She's peeling back the
curtains. We'll cut that out.
Just didn't really have much of that exposure, which that's no fault of my own. It just is what it is.
Which I think is what is so special about our union, our marriage, is that Ransom wasn't the type that was exposed to many different races, yet he still somehow by God connected to me, and we are married, and we've created this world and life together. But he wasn't the type that was necessarily looking to date outside of his race or marry outside of his race. But I really do believe that it was a divine moment set up by God that really just shifted your heart or opened your heart to this possibility. I remember a while ago when we first started dating, I think one of his friends asked him, does Michaela's family talk about race all the time?
Oh yeah. When Michaela and I started dating, if y'all can remember, it was right around the time of the George Floyd incident, and so it was 2020, like race relations and the topic of race was extremely heightened in America. And it was also this point where like, okay, something terrible happened to a person of color, and I think it sparked in a lot of people, and the George Floyd incident happened in Minnesota, where I'm from.
I was like,
and so it sparked a lot of like kind of like self-reflecting. I'm not even saying that, I mean, I maybe didn't even do enough self-reflecting at that time, but for a lot of people, like my friends, family, people at that time, they kind of had to like, you know, check yourself at the door and you know, kind of see within their own self, like you know, think about the hidden biases that they have and things like that. And so I think to my friend, in asking that question at that time, it was because of the things that were going on in the world. And so he was probably thinking too, okay, like you're joining what is a Black family, and how do they think about things that go on in the world? But I think for Black people, like those things are just like, you know, sadly somewhat commonplace. And so it's,
yeah, but I do think there's an assumption that all Black families are really politically driven and politically charged, and I did not grow up in that environment at all. Neither one of my parents really were politically driven in the sense of really instilling in us to vote a certain way or believe a certain way when it came to politics. They were all about, you know, God.
Or even talking about other people's races.
Or even talking about other people's races, yeah. So I really didn't grow up in that household where we talked about politics or we talked about, you know, having a certain bias because of our history. I did not grow up in that environment, which I am so grateful for, because it really didn't create any sort of hindrances there when it came to other races. I mean, we really have had, as I've grown and matured as an adult, I've had my own experiences with, you know, certain things, subtleties, nothing ever, you know, right in my face or feeling put down because of my race. Again, being from Los Angeles, you don't experience it too much, but you do still sense subtle things at times. But thankfully, because it was rooted in us, our identity in Christ and who we are, those things tend to not really hold too much weight in my heart or my mind.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like just, my story comes back to the fact that, again, like I just didn't really have the exposure, and partly sometimes I wonder if maybe I would have been more exposed, maybe I wouldn't have been more open, because maybe it would have been, you know, maybe it would have been more like taboo, you know, maybe, or something like that. But because I didn't have the exposure, it was like, I don't know, I just saw Michaela pretty much as this other person, you know, someone that I can communicate with, talk with, enjoy time with. And so it didn't really matter.
But we share all this with you because I know people have preferences and you know, certain likes and dislikes about what they want in a spouse or a mate when you're single or you're looking for that. But I really do have this opinion that just kind of open your horizons, open your mind, open your heart to where God is leading, because you never really know who you're gonna end up with.
That's the big one.
Well, one fun one is Ransom grew up on the lake, in the water, always swimming, always doing lake activities, water skiing, you know, what else? Fishing, boating, doing all of the things.
Michaela's brother always teases me, teases Michaela. It's about the hikes and the bikes.
And bikes. Yeah. And I am probably the last person, the least outdoorsy person you could think of. And so that has been fun to learn some things, but also because I'm older now, I feel like there's a lot of intimidation. There's a lot of intimidation when it comes to those things for me. And
Plus, Michaela doesn't like to get in the water because it
don't
messes
like
up her
to-
hair.
Yeah,
It's mostly
well-
because of her hair.
Well, not always. Sometimes my hair is natural, and I'm just not used to being in the water.
And that's a cultural difference too.
But I'm also
that might have been the biggest one that was a shocker to me. Wow.
I used to be on the swim team, so I could swim, but we didn't do it a whole lot. So even though I grew up around water and by the beach, we didn't go swimming a lot. We didn't do those things in my particular family, and so I don't have a strong comfortability with doing all of those water activities. But I am excited for our kids too, because they will grow up with more of that familiarity.
Probably the biggest area where we've, thought about race is when it comes down to our children, and thinking about that. And not that we've like agonized over it or thought about it a ton, but just because our kids are gonna have that dynamic where their dad is a white guy from Minnesota, their mom is a, black woman from LA, just having them be self-aware about that is something that, we're going to prioritize, obviously. But I think for me, when we were talking about it or thinking about, okay, our children coming into the world, and how are they going to be perceived, and also what sort of readiness or grounding do they need to be given in terms of like going about in their life. I was like, I don't know, for me, I was just like, I was kind of hesitant. Like, I don't really know like what needs to be said or why it needs to be said, because it's it's a different dynamic, I guess.
Yeah, and I would say, especially us having a son who, let's be honest, in the world, in society, even if you're biracial, a lot of the world views children that are mixed with black as black. And so that is something that Ransom has thought about. And I think maybe to a certain extent you thought, how am I going to find that relatability to that experience depending on, different factors. But what we know is that we want to instill in our children their identity in Christ. That no matter what you look like, no matter what race you are, it's all about who you are as God's child. And if they have that understanding, and if they have that strong confidence in who they are in Christ, then all of that other concern and worry for us as parents will fall away. And we know that they're going to have their own experiences. They're going to deal with certain things that we probably have never dealt with. But as long as we keep pointing them to Christ, we feel confident in this journey. And we're excited about it as well. There's certain concerns and worries for me as well when it comes to how they would be perceived or accepted or not accepted based upon, to be completely honest, their skin tone, like how light they are or how dark they are. And I say that from personal experience. I don't know if I'm gonna include this or not, but I might. I say this from personal experience. In the US, you do grow up as you get older, especially as a darker skinned person, you start to notice some biases. You do start to notice that in the mainstream media, you do not see a lot of dark-skinned women celebrated. Dark-skinned men maybe a little bit more, but you don't see it a lot in mainstream media that of people of color, especially darker-skinned people, really celebrated. You do see it more now in our day and age in 2024, but it's still been a slow uphill, I think, journey. So I do kind of think about that, like how are they going to be accepted in different spaces and different environments? But we just know, again, all of those concerns fade away when your focus is on Christ and we're raising them up to be
Yeah,
his.
that's going to be the focal point of our children's lives, and it's been the focal point of mine and Michaela's relationship and our marriage. We never, you know, put such an emphasis on race, as you all probably can tell, where it, you know, takes leading precedent in terms of how we think or how we live, because yeah, that is not our you know, guiding light. Or
But anyways, we love you and we hope that this video was somewhat encouraging, if not anything, just a window into our life and our experience. We love you, and until next time, bye.